Prom Night, Blood, Betrayal, and another Fear Street movie. But is Prom Queen a worthy new chapter in Netflix's horror saga, or just another corpse on the content pile? Smash that like button to appease the algorithm gods, or they'll send another Fear Street sequel our way. Set in Shadyside High in 1988, this entry follows a prom night that goes predictably wrong. As a killer stalks teens vying for prom royalty, secrets unravel, gore flows, and we're left wondering, was this script cursed too? So back in 2021, Netflix had this ambitious idea of releasing a trilogy of horror movies based on the R.L. Stine Fear Street book series. I don't think they were ever directly adapted, but we had a horror movie every week. So you're naturally thinking, oh, this is going to be crap. But they're actually pretty good. The first one was 1994, then 1978, and then 1666. I think my personal favorite was 1978. It's almost like the best Friday the 13th movie that was never made. 1994 I liked quite a bit. 1666 I probably liked the least, but I still thought it was a worthy entry into the trilogy, and it just wraps it up in the end. So they are releasing another Fear Street movie. So obviously I like the original trilogy, so I should like this one, right? So I was looking forward to this. I didn't really watch any trailers going into this, so I wasn't expecting to see Chris Klein, Catherine Watterson, and Lily Taylor in this. So especially Chris Klein. I basically know him from the American Pie movies. He's a sleazy teacher who's like the father of the main bully. Catherine Watterson plays his wife, and Lily Taylor is a vice principal who is very strict. And this isn't like a late 90s, early 2000s slasher movie where there's no gore. There's a considerable amount of gore, okay? So I look at these slashers in a sort of grading curve in a way, because I grew up with some crappy slasher movies. So when I see gore and it's not trying to placate to some sort of PG-13, and I know this is a Netflix movie, so it doesn't really matter, I have to give it credit for that. And probably my favorite scene in the movie is someone gets their hands chopped off with the paper slicer thing. Both their hands are chopped off, and then they're still alive, trying to get away, and then they're trying to open the doorknob with their bloody stumps. That was awesome. And they threw me off of who the killer was too, and it wasn't someone I was really expecting. And I'll go more into that in the spoiler section. But with that one kill, the movie didn't really keep pace with the stump guy. So this obviously takes place in the 80s, and I've been talking about how things in the 80s is so played out now. I think we're getting into the movies that take place in the 90s and early 2000s now, because that's nostalgic. But the way they did it here is lazy. Like, they did the bare minimum to make it look like an 80s movie. Like, a lot of the people's hair didn't even look like 80s hair. And even some of the music choices. And this is a positive. Like, I love the music in this. You put some 80s bangers in a movie, yeah, obviously it's going to trigger that nostalgia in my brain. Ooh, I like this. But it doesn't really make sense in the movie. No one's going to be asking for them to play Gloria in high school in 1988. A lot of them aren't going to be listening to music from the early 80s that takes place in 1988. Like, it's totally different genres of music. Music really was different from the early 80s to the late 80s. So thinking these high schoolers are going to be requesting these songs at a dance, I don't think so. And maybe that's a weird criticism, but that's just what goes in my mind, because it doesn't seem like people making these movies don't really realize what year it is and the taste of especially teenagers in the 80s. They're not going to listen to something from 1980 and 1988. And one thing that elevated the Fear Street trilogy was the characters. They had some interesting characters, good dynamics between the characters. You don't need to go overboard with a horror movie, but the characters are flat in this, and there's so many, and it's like an exposition dump at the beginning with the narration explaining who people are, who they're friends with and stuff. And I know it's done in like high school movies, but I don't know, just don't tell, show. And I'm getting tired of just asshole bullies, like psychotic bullies all the time. I think it's just so really played out and just makes characters flatter than they should be. And man, it got really repetitive. Is kill, someone goes to a room. Kill, someone goes to a room. Kill. There's no real suspense or atmosphere, and it's just basically a slasher paint by numbers. It's very just generic. And it doesn't have the consistent tone and substance of the original trilogy, which makes sense because the director of the trilogy, Lee Janiak, was not involved in this. So I should have researched before being hyped for this. And I think the killer reveal was anticlimactic. Like, it threw me off with one of the red herrings, which I will go into in the spoiler section. But it just seemed too obvious. That's why I got thrown for a loop, I think. But with that said, I'm going to go into spoilers, so just go to the timestamp below if you don't want to see who the killer is, about the ending and all the other stuff, and just go to my final score and overall thoughts. So Chris Klein is initially revealed as the killer after he's stabbed in the eye with the crown. Then you find out later, there's another twist, of course, that his wife and daughter were also in on it. So the main bully, Chris Klein, and Catherine Watterson, which I didn't know that was Catherine Watterson until this reveal. Like, that's how little they gave her to do throughout the movie. But yeah, it's the bully and her parents who are the killers. Like, okay. I thought it was going to be Lily Taylor and her son because they're just very uptight and everything. I think that would have been more interesting. The final girl kicks the bully off her second floor hallway and she lands on a statue that impales her. Cool kill. Very cool kill. And then Catherine Watterson chases her down. She gets bashed in the head with one of her daughter's trophies and she basically bleeds out there. And that's basically it. That's the end of the movie. And there's an after credits scene where the pool of blood from Catherine Watterson's head forms a witch's mark from the original trilogy. So that is the callback to the trilogy. So was this like supernatural? Was the witch's curse like cursing this family? I don't know. It lacked a lot of the supernatural elements, and I think that's just a big reach for this. Not the worst killer reveal, but it was definitely missing a lot. That's the thing. I can't really say a whole lot about it because it's just so bland and generic. Overall, I would give Fear Street Prom Queen a 2 out of 5. It's just a very disappointing movie, especially after the surprisingly good Fear Street trilogy. An interesting experiment that you can only do on streaming that actually worked out incredibly well. It seems like Netflix has already ruined this IP by pushing out this super generic slasher and just slapping the Fear Street title on it. I think I'd be interested in this if the director, Lee Janiak, was involved in a new movie, but other than that, fool me once. But yeah, I feel like this is a waste of time and I wish I watched a different movie, so take that for what it is. But I officially declare Fear Street Prom Queen as Netflix slop. Did you see Fear Street Prom Queen? Let me know what you think down below. Did it drop the tiara or am I just being too harsh? If you like this, maybe subscribe, hit that like button to appease the algorithm gods, and check out my full playlist of movie reviews below. No prom ticket required.